Good morning, students. This is Dr. Mukesh Srivastav. Today we are going to have a session on sample designs and sampling procedures. Now we have to see what are the different things we are going to cover in this video, that is sampling design. One is we get to understand what are the simple terminology which we are going to use in sampling. Now, sample first and foremost thing is that a sample. We need to understand what is sample. Sample is basically a subset of any population. Now we are having a population. Second term is population of the universe. That means if we are having some specific number of respondents or proposed respondent which we are going to add in our study, that means in that study the whole proposed respondent, or actually what are the proposed number of respondents which are going to add, we are going to in that study, that is basically our population. Now we need to understand what is population element. The respondent, the characteristics of the respondent, what type of respondent we are going to have in our study, that is population element. And another term, very important term, that is census. Census, that means when we go through all the population, when we are having all the population in our study, that means we are going to do a census survey, that is called census. And sampling frame, that means if we prepare a source list or the population list or the list of the proposed respondent which we are going to add in our population, that is basically sampling frame. If we are having one by one, we'll take up one by one term, that is sample is a subset of larger population. Another population, that means any complete group. It may be consist of people, it may be there are sales territories, there are stores, these are households, these are individuals, these are population. Getting, it may be finite, it may be infinite. If we know the number of the population, that is finite population. If we do not know the size of the population, that means we assume that that is a infinite population. We were saying census survey, that means when we investigate all the individual elements or the population element existing in that population, that is basically the population, that is that particular survey is called census. And sampling frame, the elementary units, that means we are going to have individual respondents in our whole population, and we try to make a list of that. That means all the list of that sampling unit, sampling free elements, or I should say the population elements, when we make that list, that is called sampling frame. Sampling frame consists of the list of items from which the sample is to be drawn. That means why we prepare a list, why we make a sample frame. We make sampling frame because we need to draw a specific, a representative sample from that population. For that purpose, we make the sampling frame. Now, these are different stages to select a sample. First is define a target population. Now, we'll take up an example so that we can understood clearly what is target population. Like if we are doing a study in city of Lucknow and we are doing a research work on youth of Lucknow, that means we have taken into mind, like we are going to target the youth of Lucknow. That means we need to understand, we need to define a specific population. What is the specific population of that youth? That means that is our target population. Now, if we assume that, means Lucknow's population is around about 30 lakhs, and if we know, if we understood, if we have some data from some census or some department of census, that how many, what is the actual population of youth in Lucknow. If I assume that there are 10 lakh youth existing in Lucknow, getting it, my assumption, it's my assumption, it's not correct, but it's my assumption that 10 lakh youth are there in Lucknow. That means it is our target population. We are going to target this 10 lakh people. That means 10 lakh will be our population. Now, if I am taking this 10 lakh, that means I am working on a finite population. And if we do not know, like if we do not any kind of information about the population, that means we'll say we're working on an infinite population. Getting? Now, once you have a population, a target population, you have defined that target population, now start making a sampling frame. Getting? You have started making a source list, the list of that population element, that is called sampling frame. Now, once this sampling frame is ready with you, now start selecting what type of sampling method or sampling method, the sampling design method you are going to choose. Now, it may be probability sampling, it may be non-probability sampling. Now, there are two types of techniques to draw a sample from the population. Once each and every element of that source list or the sampling frame has equal chance of selection in that particular sample, is called, this particular activity, this particular method is called probability sampling method. And if this chance is not equal, then it is called non-probability sampling method. Now there are different types of probability sampling method and there are different types of non-probability sampling method. We'll discuss in other slide, another video, but today we are going to have this stages of sample. So I'm just making an assurance about the probability and the non-probability sampling method. Now you have chosen a specific method, a probability sampling method and a non-probability sampling method. Now go to the next step, plan procedure for selecting sampling units. Now you have chosen the method, you have chosen the source list, you have chosen the target population. Now it's time to select the sampling units. Now these are those individuals who are going to be selected for the sample. Like if we have taken the youth population, like I have assumed that there is a 10 lakh population in Lucknow, and I'm going to make us sample size of 500, sorry. I'm going to make a sample size of 500. Getting? Now what I will do, I will start choosing those population element who are going to be add in that sample. Getting? I've chosen the method. It may be probability method, it may be non-probability method. Start selecting those sampling unit from that sampling frame. Now determine the sample size. I have decided that I will take 500 sample size. No, this is a method. There is a method, a specific method of choosing a sample size. Getting? There is a different formula. There is a central limit theorem which tells you about the sample size. Getting? Central limit theorem says when n is indirectly proportional to standard error of that particular research. Now, what is the standard error? When I say standard error, that means how much the error we are going to accept in that particular research. Getting? Now, if we increase the sample size, this standard error goes down. I have said indirectly proportional, that means there is an indirect relationship between standard error and sample size. If we increase the sample size, the standard error will go down. But if we take a smaller sample, that means it's a lower sample size, that means the error will be larger. Now we have a dilemma for that, how much the sample size we have to take. If we take larger sample, that will increase the cost, that will increase the effort, that will increase the time for our research. And if we are doing our research in a small span of time, getting, that means you are having a greater standard error in your research. Now it's up to you. What is that optimum level of sample size? Getting? It's up to you. Now you have decided the sample size. When I will go on this sample size chapter, I will tell you about what are the different formulas for calculating sample size, how much the error we need to take. Getting? Now we have decided sample size, we have taken the sampling units. Now select actual sampling unit. Now you have prepared your sampling frame, you have decided your sample size. Now start selection, start collecting your actual sampling unit from that sampling frame. Once you have prepared with your sample size of optimum number of sample size, getting, start conducting your field work. Getting? Now these are the some terms which I've already told you. Target population, relevant and operationally defined. Yes, you have to design the population. Sampling design. Now that's Selection is the stages of selection is over. Now the term that is sampling design, if we are saying design, that means we are making a definite plan for selection of that individual unit from the population to that specific sample. Getting? A sampling claim is basically a blueprint how that sample will be selected, how that sample will be drawn from that population, what method will we adopt for selection of that particular individual unit from that population to the sample. Getting? This is called sampling design. Like it is rightly said over here, a sampling design is a definite plan for obtaining a sample from the sampling frame. It refers to the technique or the procedure the researcher would adopt in selecting some sampling units from which inferences about the population is drawn. Yes, why are you doing? We are doing this activity for making inferences on the population. Getting? We want to generalize sub concept, sub decision making. We want to do some decision making on the population. For that purpose we are going to select the sample from that population. So that's all for this video. The types of sampling design we'll discuss in the next video. Thank you.